How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about Steve Bannon's speech before a group of black conservatives about business. Now, I'm not really sure how I missed this story. This is a pretty good one, actually, and it's got a lot of attention from a lot of different people. People are triggered about it. Of course, the liberals, because they want to keep black men and women right in their place. They don't want us to become economically independent because we won't need them anymore. And you see some of the hate that it's gotten. This article was written by a white and/or Jewish liberal by the name of Elliot Nelson. And you see the title, you see the headline: Steve Bannon glosses over racist past in speech to black Republicans. And then a subhead here says, a lot of women have come forward and accused me of doing things one attendee said. Half of them are true. Now, who knows where that came from? What's the context of it? It doesn't really matter, right? As long as you're trying to just disparage black conservatives, it's okay. It's not racist. It's not anything like that. But before we get into the article, let's watch the video. Ironically enough, this comes from TV One. I'm surprised they picked out a good piece of the actual full speech, which is about 45 minutes long. And I'll link to that whole thing in the description box below because you got to see it. But I'm surprised they picked out this good piece. So we're going to go ahead and check that out, and I'm going to give you my commentary as it progresses. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
Here's what Steve Bannon told the group of black conservatives.
I'm here today to talk and open a discussion, as some of you have been at my other discussions with black and Hispanic entrepreneurs. The central part of economic nationalism depends upon you.
That's right.
It depends upon us empowering the black and Hispanic entrepreneurial community with one thing: access to capital.
Yes. Preach.
This entire movement that I'm very fortunate to be part of, and this C4 I'm starting, is going to have as a central thesis of it programs that stop the destruction of the black and Hispanic working class.
Yes.
Did the minority community cause the biggest financial crisis in the history of the country?
No, we didn't.
Absolutely not. By the way, what happened on the financial crisis? My old firm, Goldman Sachs,
Bill Clinton
the
did
day
that.
after, I think, when Hank Paulson, Secretary of Treasury, went and saw President Bush, I think it was 2 days later, they became a bank holding company with a stroke of a pen in 2 lines. And you bankers know what it is. They borrow free from the Fed at 0 interest rates. They make how many tens of billions of dollars a year? Did anybody in this room get that bailout? Any community bank get a bailout? Was the SBA recapitalized because of that? Did private equity or venture capital come into your community?
See, this is real talk right here. You're not going to hear this from the left. They're not going to come and actually talk about real business, real numbers, real stuff from somebody that's actually been in banking, Goldman Sachs, somebody that really knows what they're talking about. What you're going to get is, people talk about fried chicken, barbecue, stupid stuff that's really irrelevant. This right here is real information. And like I said, if you want to see the full thing, I'll link to it in the box. But let's continue for now.
Absolutely not. The solution to the financial crisis, what was the solution? Not just the bailouts. The bailouts are just the thing on the top. It was the liquidity infusion by the central banks.
Yes.
They were going to inflate their way out of here by inflating assets. So if you own real estate or if you own stocks, it's been the greatest run you've ever had. And you know who predicted that? A guy named Donald Trump. What is it, like 2011? Trump says, if you own real estate now, you're going to go on a great run. He saw what was happening. But if you're a worker with a high school education,
low skills,
in real dollars, you haven't had a raise since 1972. And remember, economic nationalism does not care about your color, your race, your ethnicity. It doesn't care about your religion. It doesn't care about your gender. It doesn't care about your sexual preference. That's all irrelevant.
Preach.
You know what it cares about? Only one thing. You're a citizen of the United States of America.
Preach on, brother. Preach on.
Remember, illegal immigration and the trade deals are 2 sides of the same coin. It's to suppress the wages of workers, right? The terrible trade deals are to have unfair competition among our workers, right? That's what it is. The whole thing is because it's made cheaper over there.
It's unfair because they are working for near what you would call slave wages. And then, if they get imported over here, they work below the table. They're getting paid less than minimum wage. You're not getting paid market value. So then that depresses all the wages. You're trying to get 10 to 15 bucks an hour. Meanwhile, you got Jose or, somebody over in China working for a fraction of that. So how are you going to compete? It's unfair.
You don't need to tell the people in Ohio. They know where the jobs went. The jobs went to Asia.
Yes.
This wasn't the second law of thermodynamics. There's no law of physics that said that had to happen. That is human agency made that decision. It was going to happen, and it went.
Yes.
The campaign was basically run on three simple principles. Number one, we're going to stop mass illegal immigration and limit legal immigration. Here's the reason. You can't save the black and Hispanic and white working class while you have unlimited illegal immigration. I'm a capitalist. I believe in supply. I went to Harvard Business School and worked at Goldman Sachs. I'm a real capitalist. I believe in supply and demand. What the Chamber of Commerce and what the capitalists and what the guys on Wall Street want, they want more labor and competition with our citizens.
Yes.
I get it. Higher operating margin, higher stock price. Okay? It's destroying civic society because it's destroying the education system, it's destroying the healthcare system.
That's the result.
But they don't have to pay for it.
Right. They can defer the costs. Basically, they can make more money from what they do, but they don't pay for the social costs. They're not worried about that. It's all about what they want. So it doesn't matter if you have to foot the bill for their money. That's unimportant. The point is they can do these things to get more money into their pockets. It doesn't matter who has to pay for it as long as they don't have to pay for it.
The workers in this country pay for it.
Yes.
Economic nationalism is telling Germany and China and Japan that tariffs are coming and new trade deals are coming and quotas are coming, and that's why they're investing here.
They have to.
They're not going to do us any favors. By the way, the second part of that to take that was number one was to stop mass illegal immigration and limit legal immigration. Number two is bring jobs back. Number three was get us out of these pointless foreign wars that have sucked the lifeblood out of us. On the
There we go.
The $5.6 trillion. On the jobs, you're not going to wave a magic wand and those jobs are going to come back. They're not going to come back easily. You saw that in the trip to China. It's going to take tough trade negotiations. It's going to take tough enforcement. The managed decline of our country works for the elites. Who it doesn't work for is the working men and women in this country. It's as obvious as the nose on your face, and the solution is obvious.
That's right.
Working men and women and entrepreneurs need somebody on their side of the football that's prepared to fight and not back down. That's what Donald Trump came along with. Is Donald Trump perfect? No, he's not perfect. He's the first guy to admit he's not perfect. He's a very imperfect instrument.
No human being is perfect on earth. So if people are looking for perfection or a Jesus Christ-like figure and a man, they're going to be holding their breath for a long time. Go to get a Snickers. It's going to be a while.
It's not just the Clintons. The other 16 guys he beat in the Republican Party, he went after the establishment.
Yes.
That's why he's so hated.
Preach.
He's the first to admit he's a very imperfect instrument. But he's a blunt force instrument.
As you heard today, he asked and invited us to be involved in the process, not wait till a piece of legislation is passed and then we complain about what is or isn't in it. We're going to be giving input before there is a bill. We're going to help massage the bill through the legislative process. We're going to be meeting with the White House officials, even the president, to talk about what we think needs to be, for example, in infrastructure. That's a major bill. Your commitment to a community should not be based on how much money you put in social welfare programs, but how few people need access to those programs.
Preach.
What Steve talked about is creating jobs in these communities so that they are gainfully employed and they don't need those social programs. But if folks fall on hard times, I think that's a legitimate role for the government to step in. What President Trump is doing, he's trying to consolidate some programs with, like, for example, within the Commerce Department. So, but liberals have been running and saying that's a budget cut, but he's saying no, let's take that program that was sitting over here as an independent budget item, let's fold it into another organization that can accomplish the same thing. Steve's setting up
Simple.
the foundation. I'm in charge of setting up the working groups by committees. And but you had the first thing we're going to get on is these community development banks. We already have the paperwork done. We're in the process of setting up 6 regional community development banks. So we had a theoretical conversation about that in September at our economic policy forum. So we went from a conversation in September to get ready to file paperwork to the Treasury Department in December.
I was actually quite skeptical coming in this afternoon, primarily because of the work that we do in China. I think it was excellent. It was really very
hilarious,
tactically approached. So it wasn't just to talk about the strategical point of view, but they actually brought it down to tactical ways that we can implement our different agendas. So being able to actually focus on how we can work in the communities and help to transform policy to be able to impact the communities was that.
These are the guys that are really making the moves and really moving and shaking in your community. Not guys like Roland Martin, who just lost his TV show and, was crying about not being able to compete. These guys are actually out there competing and succeeding. Okay. So I'll listen to these guys rather than a Roland Martin, but I digress. What I'm going to do right now is go ahead and get into the article. We're going to read that and see what they say about the whole situation. This white liberal guy. Like I said, Steve Bannon glosses over racist past and speech to black Republicans. You see that. This video right here is not related to that actual article, but we're going to go ahead and get into it. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. There we go. All right. Former White House advisor and Breitbart's news chairman Steve Bannon doesn't exactly have the best relationship with the African-American community. Now, when you say that, you say it as if he's done something to us. The reason why that statement may be true, I'm not sure if it is or it isn't, is because most black folks don't identify with Republicans in general. So it's not just Bannon. It's anybody that is a Republican. It doesn't matter if they're white, Puerto Rican, black, candy stripe, whatever. The black community mostly sides with Democrats, and it's usually because of political ignorance. But I digress. Bannon himself was the ultra-nationalist architect of Donald Trump's presidential campaign, and Breitbart has long pushed alarmist stories about African Americans, going so far as to tag many of his articles black crime. Well, first of all, there's nothing wrong with being an ultra-nationalist. What's wrong with being an American? You don't love America? You don't love the country that you're in? Are you going to renounce your citizenship? Are you going to hand over your passport? All of that kind of stuff. Where are you going to go next? So there's nothing wrong with being an American and wanting what's best for American citizens. Anybody, any leader or anybody that purports themselves to be in a leadership role in a place should want that for their people. And then you're talking about Breitbart. I mean, there is a problem with black crime. That's a fact. 52% of all murderers in the United States are black, even though we only account for about 13% of the population at best, really right around 12.8 to 12.6% of the population. So there is a problem there, and nobody can deny that. However, Bannon received a warm reception Tuesday during remarks at a luncheon hosted by Black Americans for a Better Future, a Republican political action committee that consists of African American business people. And in parentheses, they have, but with financial backers who aren't, quote, black, unquote, so much as, quote, overwhelmingly white, unquote. Well, what's wrong with that? I mean, why is it wrong for blacks and whites to work together? So are you saying we have to be segregationist? Are you trying to push it for that again? I thought liberals were all about inclusion. I thought liberals were all about civil rights. So why is it a problem when blacks and whites and everybody else work together? You want to say first that we're ultra nationalists in a way to say that he's like some kind of way racist. And then you say that there's something wrong with blacks and whites working together in unity, in unison and harmony. Which one is it? I don't know. I can't tell, but I digress. Limiting the destruction of the black and Hispanic working class, Bannon said Tuesday that those groups are being victimized by a globalist economic agenda. They are. Absolutely. When you bring in people from other places, other countries, when you go to other countries to get cheaper labor, cheaper parts, whatever it is, the person who ends up losing in the situation is a regular everyday working class person. Blacks and Hispanics usually have lower skills than other people. Therefore, we get a short end of the stick because those lower skill jobs go to places where the labor is done for cheaper. That's very simple. That's very easy to see. Quote, economic nationalism does not care about your color, your race, your ethnicity, Bannon said. It doesn't care about your religion. It doesn't care about your gender. It doesn't care about your sexual preference. That's true. It's really all about you being an American. Like he said, it's all about you being an American and money. It's about the dollar. It's about what you're able to do, what you're able to bring to the table, and being an American citizen. That is it, and that is all. That has nothing to do with any of your personal identity outside of being an American citizen. Back to the article. Yet Bannon spent a good portion of his remarks pitting immigrants and various minority groups against one another, blaming some for the economic woes of others. See, when you say that, you're trying to act like illegal immigrants. It's not about immigrants, really, for the most part. It's about illegal immigrants and people that are not American citizens right now. You're saying that as if we're all the same, as if somebody that lives in Honduras right now is the same as me as an African American. How does that make any sense? I'm an American citizen and I'm black. They're Honduran and they're not black. And if they were black, it doesn't make a difference. They're not American. So we're not the same. So when you say, against one another, you're trying to make it be like just because they are a so-called immigrant and I'm a so-called minority that we're in the same boat when we're not. So I resent that remark. Elliot, whatever your name is. Illegal immigration and trade deals are two sides of the same coin, Bannon said at one point. It suppresses the wages of workers. Yes, because when you have illegal immigrants that come over here and work for next to nothing under the table, who getting paid pennies on the dollar versus an American citizen, it's going to bring down all the wages. When you're trying to go out there and compete, I say you're on lawn care. And shout out to my caller I had on my live show the other day who was talking about the same situation. She's a black woman who owns a lawn care business. She also does she cleans up, commercial cleanup. She goes up to foreclosed homes, abandoned homes, and cleans them up. She's saying how she has to go out there in the field every day and compete with illegal immigrants. She's trying to pay her guys, black males now, $10 to $15 an hour to do this, lawn care work. But she's getting calls to do an entire yard for like $9 total, $9. How can she do that and pay her guys $10 to $15 an hour? It's not possible. Why are the wages so low? The reason is because you have illegal immigrants that come over here and work for next to nothing and send the money back to Mexico, wherever they come from, where the money is worth more. So they will get paid less, but end up having more because of how much the dollar is worth in their country of origin. See, that's why the wages get suppressed and American citizens lose as a result. People that are over here illegally, they're not paying no taxes, they're sending money back to wherever they come from. It's unfair. And that is the whole point that Bannon was making. He also decried the change in demographics of Virginia Tech, his alma mater. Black and Hispanic kids don't get in there, Bannon said, to nods and words of sympathy from the crowd. Asian kids are paying full freight. Yes, exactly. That's pretty much what it is. Quote, our kids are no dumber, unquote, he added. They're just as smart. Yes. When one attendee asked Bannon about the dearth of African Americans in senior positions in the Trump administration, Bannon called the situation inexcusable before pivoting to a discussion of trade imbalances in China, with China. Well, the thing about that, there's not a lot of black folks in Trump's administration because not a lot of black folks that are interested in becoming Republicans or they're not interested in being in the GOP. So you have a very small pool to select from. You can't just say, well, because blacks are X, Y, and Z population of America, they should also be X, Y, Z population of Trump's administration. Or if you're trying to reach out to black folks, you should have more blacks in your administration. It's easier said than done to find, first of all, willing participants and then qualified participants. It's not as easy as it may seem. And this whole color-based hiring shouldn't be the focus of Trump's administration. It should be about who's going to do the best job. It doesn't matter what color you are, what gender you are, what your sexual orientation. That's irrelevant. Can you get the job done? That's the main thing. But the reason, like I said, why there may not be as many blacks is because there's a small pool to select from. Bannon's remarks come on the heels of Trump's vocal endorsement of Roy Moore, the Alabama Republican and Senate candidate whom at least 9 women have accused of sexual misconduct. Several of the accusers have said Moore pursued them when they were teenagers and he was in his 30s. No proof, no evidence. He's denied all the allegations. So, it doesn't even really matter. If you find evidence, if you find proof of any kind of sexual misconduct, sexual assault or whatever, then, the appropriate action should be taken at that point. But we don't have that as of right now. Bannon, who was slated to stunt for more on Tuesday evening, has remained an outspoken proponent of Trump's nationalist agenda rhetoric, criticizing Republicans who waver in their support of it and bolstering candidates who back it. The crowd at Black Americans for a Better Future was not in the least put off by Moore's alleged misdeeds, erupting in applause when Bannon brought up his campaign. This country needs somebody to fight for them. I fought for Trump and I fought for Judge Moore, he said. We backed off the Republican establishment, Bannon said to further applause. Exactly. The establishment on both sides of the aisle, Democrat, Republican, whatever, that is the biggest problem because they're all in bed with each other. They're in bed with each other. They're in bed with the mainstream lying media. So that is the main thing we're trying to get away from is the corrupt and lying media. So, of course, they're going to applaud because of that. Whether it's Jones or Moore, at least we've got it sorted that Republicans are backing a Republican candidate. Bannon left the White House in August. He was reportedly fired following Trump's appointment of Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly as his chief of staff. Kelly was widely reported to have opposed Bannon's influence in the West Wing. I mean, that's a rumor. That's not been reported to be true or false. However, little opposition to Bannon's alt-right worldview was in evidence in the basement of the Willard Hotel, where Black Americans for a Better Future held its gathering. You had to say the basement. Was that necessary to say? You're trying to make it be like illegitimate, like I said, some ragtag, podunk stuff. If you were a conservative talking about a black liberal group, they call you racist. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to point that simple fact out. Despite the organization's economic focus, many of the event's attendees and organizers voiced a distaste for pluralism and feminism that brought to mind the alt-right. Quote, I'm going to say something that might be controversial, especially in this age of sexual harassment, said Kenneth McClinton, a conservative activist, during remarks before Bannon's speech, Merry Christmas. Harry Alford, co-founder, president, and CEO of the National Black Chamber of Commerce, said he was unconvinced by the numerous accusations against Moore. Quote, a lot of women have come forward and accused me of doing things, Alford said, chuckling. Half of them are true. Okay, so he's trying to say that was the subhead to the headline here in this article. He's saying that as if he's trying to he's not saying it in proper context. It was really a joke because now all of a sudden they want to add the chuckling part after in the headline didn't have that. See, I see what's going on here. Very crafty, very interesting. Alford added that such accusations occurred before he met his wife, Kay, the co-founder of the National Black Chamber of Commerce, who was seated beside him. Kay Alford declined to speak with HuffPost. Raynard Jackson, that's what you saw at the end of the clip with the beard. Raynard Jackson, the head of Black Americans for a Better Future, told HuffPost that he, too, was unconvinced by the allegations against Moore and Trump, whom several women have likewise accused of sexual assault and harassment. Instead, Jackson criticized the Democratic Party for its economic agenda. Quote, you cannot keep giving black folks the drug of liberalism and dependency, he said. Very true. Very, very true. I'm going to touch on that real quick before we get to the end of the article. And thank you for making it to the end here. But the drug of liberalism and dependency is a very real thing. We are hooked on depending upon the Democrats for handouts. You know, in this video, which I'll put the whole thing in the box below, a woman said, we want a hand up, not a hand out. Democrats give you handouts. They give you food. They give you clothing. They give you shelter for free. But what's the catch? You can't become economically independent. You can't get married. You can't have, a 2-parent household. God forbid you do that. Matter of fact, we're going to come check this and make sure you don't have a 2-parent household if you want this stuff. It's a drug. It keeps you just barely sustained and barely alive, and you're not able to really push forward. But Democrats want that to be that way because as long as they're able to give us those things, we're always going to be a loyal voter base. When we get off of those things, when we break that addiction, when we break that bondage to the former plantation master, when we get out of the Democratic plantation, then they say, wait a minute now, we're starting to lose our voter base. We want you back. So hit pieces like this from this white guy or Jewish guy, whatever he is, Elliot, whatever he is, these are things that are designed to keep us right in our place to continue that consistently loyal voter bloc. Jackson also criticized black Democratic officials for not doing enough to address problems within the communities like police brutality and lack of economic opportunities. added offered, quote, if there's something wrong, someone black let it happen or did it, quote. Yeah, this was a big hit piece right here. It was almost racist. You know, it was like he wanted to say certain things about black Republicans, black conservatives. He just did it in a way to where it was hidden. You understand what I mean? But that's pretty much the end of that. So this article was very interesting. The video was great. I mean, Bannon hit everything right nail on the head. You know, I was with him 100%. I'm not even necessarily the biggest proponent of Steve Bannon. I'm not somebody that hates him. I like a lot of what he says. I don't agree with everything he says, but in this speech, he was dead on accurate. This article, this hit piece was nothing more than, like I said, a hit piece. And it's not surprising to see that coming from the left, especially white liberals, because like I said, they want to keep us right there on a Democratic plantation to continue to have us as a loyal voter base. Once we get off, it's a problem. But do you think that this article was a hit piece? Was there any truth to it? How about Bannon's video? Was he on point with that? Talking about illegal immigration and offshoring of jobs, how it hurts American citizens. Was he right about economic nationalism and doesn't care about your particular identity outside of you being an American citizen? I think he was right on point with that. But whatever your comments are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.